Crybaby Jim Breaks versus young David. And this match, I mean, if you are one of those people who, you see them on YouTube, the people who are like, I really enjoyed this match, good-looking young man, really put through his paces, stretched, screaming in pain. The sex people wrestling fans who are a bit weird.
Yeah.
This match is, young David is just here for 40 minutes having his arms bent. That is it. And yet somehow this match, Pete, is one of the classic clinics where you get to see the brilliance of Crybaby Jim Breaks. How was your first exposure to Jim Breaks? Do you realise that you are seeing one of the absolute all-time great heels of the wrestling business? Or did you think he was a bit boring?
No, I don't think it was a bit boring at all. He likes grabbing people's faces, doesn't he?
Doesn't he
And he loves, like, when little David is turned around at the referee. Oh, he loves going for you if you turn and your back on him. Oh, he's a proper heel, isn't he?
He does it too many times in this match, but he likes to fall to his knees and just go, give us a second, and the second they turn, he's like, scurry, I'm going to come for you. Like a rat when it gets in the corner and you approach it and then it comes for your face.
Why do the people keep falling for it? Why does he keep getting away with it? He can't keep getting away with it.
David is a young man.
Yes.
He's got a pure heart and he wouldn't expect underhanded tactics. Well, do you know what? He shouldn't be in the ring with Jim fucking Breaks then, should he?
I'll level with you, Mark. It did take me about 5 to 7 minutes in before I realised who young David was. Isn't that terrible? Isn't that awful? Because
I would say, I mean, he doesn't look similar to the one that you've seen.
No, exactly. Completely different to the one I've seen. So this match, Crybaby Jim Breaks and young David. Young David is, of course, the British Bulldog. And young David is incredibly tall. He looks like a Bay City roller, all lengthened out. But because he was so muscular and juiced up, he didn't look tall, if you know what I mean. But he is absolutely gigantic in this match. Yeah, he looked squat.
He is. He basically, in Britain, he's Tilda Swinton. When he goes to America, he's Vin Diesel. And it's a bit like, if you watch the first 2 years of Tilda Swinton's career, you're all like, she made these British films and she was very long and slender. You go, what happened to her? And you go, went to America and is in the Chronicles of Riddick, right? Just, Davey Boy Smith did not have access at this time to the stuff he would later have access to in America.
To the juice. I mean, he's still cut for a long man. He still cut a fine figure. Yeah. But good God, look, what did they do to him? At 17
years old as well. I mean, he was so good looking for Britain in 1980. In 1980, I don't think there is a better looking man than young David. Just wearing a top he comes out in, which he obviously thinks is showbiz, and I don't know what it's made of, but it just looks like one of those sort of weird cardigans that your grandma would put on for going out to like a Bernie Inn or a Harvester. It looks like it's knitted somehow, and he's wearing it, and he looks like a sort of, you know when you'd see those girls who'd never left home and they were like maiden aunts? He's got just that look. His hair is a bit sort of over blow dried, and there's something sad about him. He seems like he's got big sad cow eyes, and and young David as well, the sort of least macho of names.
Well, it's just a bit Page Boy, isn't it?
Like a romper.
Young David. It's so very twinky, isn't it? It's very twinky.
Oh, who came round? Was it young David? Yeah. How is he doing? Is he still being bullied by the other guys on the mill ground? Poor young Dave. He's got a name with a built-in obsolescence as well. You can't be young David for all of your career. But then I thought, he did it twice. Well, he then calls himself Davey Boy Smith. And a boy is younger than being young David. And I was like, wow, somehow he managed to normalise that. True, someone must have said to him, you can't be young David forever. And he was like, I better change my name to Baby David. How did it work?
One-celled organism David.
Yes. Jim Breaks is from Bradford and 5'5". So a small lad, made up to my mind like the best of British animals. He's got his stripy trunks like a wasp,
like a bee.
He's got lovely soft hair, isn't he? Like a mole, and he's got a real vibe of the aggressive Jack Russell Terrier.
Yeah, proper terrier about him. Yeah. Yeah,
snappy little vicious little he's great. Anyway, he had been around for donkey's years. He first won the British Lightweight Championship in 1963 and he would hold it again and again and again, losing it and regaining it until 1984. So a 21-year run with that belt. Some of those title matches he had, losses and regaining, were against the Dynamite Kid. And again, those matches, I should imagine, were a little bit tasty. This match should not work, Pete. It's 45 minutes. Young David does almost nothing, and it ends in a draw. And yet, it builds and builds and builds. That I was going, main event anywhere in the world. Yeah, well, this would get over.
Well, you can tell that the crowd is so hot for how much they hate Crybaby Jim Breaks. So hot. Because they are screaming audibly, "Get out of it, big head!" And just screaming. There was a couple of F words in there as well, which you do not generally hear at this time.
Incredible. His nickname was Crybaby, and that was because quite often when things didn't go his way, he'd have a tantrum. Right. And he'd stamp his foot, and they would all chant "Crybaby" at him.
Crybaby's very 80s, yes.
Such a good insult. Yeah. If you sit with anyone in a meeting and they go, "Yes, but I don't think that's actually the thing," you just go, "Oh, this Crybaby."
That's been part of your vernacular for a while, like for the longest time. I deal with a lot.
Crybaby. It really is. Crybaby is one of those things. It's a bit like if you call someone. So I was thinking about this the other day about how, like, if someone on the street goes, "You arsehole," you sort of just go, fairly friendly. But if someone said, "You little crybaby," you go, "This guy's devastated." I'm devastated.
To the core, doesn't it? Yeah.
I'm never going to recover from this.
It's time to talk, you crybaby.
He is so good as well in the role that he plays, which is the guy who is at the top of the mountain, who is small and is vicious, and he likes toying with the youngsters who aren't ready for it. Yeah. And what this plays into is that building sort of just over months and months and months, which is, can one of the young guys give him his comeuppance? Yeah. And that is just booking perfection. He is, I mean, this match, Pete, should be shite. It should be shite because it's just one man twisting a young boy's arm for 45 minutes and then it ends unsatisfactorily. But this was the third in a series that they'd had, all of which had been on television. So it was a rare bit of 1980s World of Sport actually giving a bit of a storyline. Yeah. In the first match they'd had, Jim Breaks had said young David was too inexperienced to challenge for his belt. So what he agreed to do was he said, "You can have a fall in hand and I will give you £100 of my own money if you manage to pin me." And what happened in it is Jim Breaks gets a fall, but Davey Boy Smith did pin him, and he had to pay him £100. What's funny about that is because he had a fall in hand, technically he won that match 2 falls to 1. Yeah. So should have been the champion. But they didn't make anything of it. It was just a mess up. They have a rematch 3 weeks later. This time the title is on the line. Young David wins, again 2 falls to 1. They later rescind it, saying that Davey Boy's trainer, Alan Dennison, had distracted Jim Breaks. Right. And Jim Breaks was good because he was exactly that sort of whining wrestler who would complain to the referee and complain to the organisation, and they'd sort of give him his belt back because, you know, he kicked up a fuss. Yeah. And again, a big crybaby. A total crybaby. So this is the third match that they've got. This time, Davey Boy's trainer, Alan Dennison, is banned from ringside. And, I mean, you get a 40-minute section of just a man hurting a teenager. That was acceptable back then. That was entertainment. There's a long British tradition of men in their 30s beating up teenagers in your local area. They didn't get it right with their own kids, so they're taking it out on the youths. But do you know what happens? One day, they pick on one of the kids who is going to have a lucky day, and he's going to get a lucky break, and he is going to hand that 30-year-old man's arse to him. And that 30-year-old man will have to then leave the town. And that, to me, is what Jim Breaks is. He's the bloke who picks on kids. Yeah. And what you watch is you watch to see the kids get one up on him. It's so good.
Yes, over the top, nicely. Double leg Nelson with Ted, but the feet came down on his head to get him off. 1 minute to go.
Very early on, you know, it's all nice and quiet and respectful. And I think part of Jim Breaks' real appeal was people did really respect him. They knew he could wrestle. Yeah. It's just that he chose to be a shit. And that was sort of magical. Yeah. there's a bit where they're just doing arm exchanges, and suddenly Jim Breaks gives a real yelp when his fingers get hurt. And I think that's a perfect example of him sort of going, I am going to bring the crowd in. We're just doing a bit here, but I'm going to scream, and they're suddenly going to be more invested than they were 2 seconds ago. And they are. And they just do that round. They're all just rolling about. They're doing finger locks and stuff. And basically, he waits right to the end of the round. The bell goes. He then pushes young David. He sort of can't get out of the finger lock. And then he jabs at David's eyes. And you just go, brilliant. You gave us that first round to say you could do it. But the important thing we all need to know is that you're a lazy, corner-cutting little shit.
And that's way after the bell, and Breaks knew it.
What's really noticeable is there's a bit where young David sort of goes to do a headbutt on Breaks after the bell, and the crowd, rather than go, yes, he's getting some of his own medicine, they go quiet.
Yeah,
they're a bit like, no,
like
David,
don't.
Come on, David. Come on, David.
You're not like him.
Yes. Don't let him infect you. There's a bit where Breaks is talking, jawing at the crowd, and he says the line, I bet you're married for a while, he says to someone. I don't know what it meant.
Side headlock now to Breaks. 30 seconds to go. Round 2.
I bet you won't at it for a while.
Breaks one of his quick one-liners to the crowd.
Kent Walton's really like one of the classic Jim Breaks one-liners there.
It wasn't. It doesn't make any sense.
Bet you're married for a while. It's, you know,
he's mixed up his tenses. It's confusing.
Yeah. There's some lovely bits at the end of rounds where he holds on to Davey's hand and then sort of says to the ref, get him off me, get him off me. Davey's trying to pull himself away and he's held him in there. And as Davey gets away, Breaks just aims a proper kick at his head. Like he's just going, get off. Such good shithousery.
Yeah.
It's along the lines of stop hitting yourself.
Yeah.
You know, just majestic. Really just, you know, that bit where you see he's been working for so long, the crowd are sort of slightly chanting for young David, and he just shouts at them, you better shout louder than that. And they do. He just has them in the palm of his hand. It's just magic.
Half a minute to go.
You better shout louder than that!
Back to the turn. This is what's caused the trouble so far.
The ring announcer looks like Eric Morecambe. It's just all good stuff. It really is.
Amazing, isn't it? I mean, by round 5, you know, David starts to sort of learn about Breaks.
Yeah.
So he doesn't go for the handshake. Last time he went for the handshake, Breaks just put him in a headlock. So he's beginning to get cannier, and you're seeing him as the match progresses begin to understand what he's up against and begin to counter it and wrestle. Perfect build. But, I mean, Breaks, young David's too young for the belt, isn't he, though? He says. And
Young David's too young for the belt, isn't he, laddie?
Well, his confident moment, Breaks. And there's the arm lever. Hold on by Breaks' feet.
now you'll find out what it's all about. And I thought, I would have a Crybaby Jim Breaks. Now you'll find out what it's all about t-shirt made for the next live show that we do. Absolutely great. Yeah. Tell him how good you are, David. Come on, he says. I loved it. He finally gets Davey in round 9 to submit to the break special, which was a sort of armbar that he used. And now you've got an even more of an uphill climb for David. And what's really clever about this match, it doesn't go, can David win? What this match is it's can David not lose? Can he last the next 3 rounds? Can he just go the distance? And that's an amazing thing, to take away victory from Davey, but just go, the crowd will support you all the same. They just want to see you survive this. I just fucking loved it. There is one bit where I think David got lost, and there's a bit where he's got his hand over Breaks' face. Yeah. And Breaks starts breathing almost like Davey's put his fingers up his nose. But then Davey's hand goes across, and you can see Jim Breaks going, I don't think this is going to look convincing, whatever he's doing here. I don't know what it is. And he gets Davey's hand and actually puts himself into a headlock into it. And I was thinking, this is like Bret Hart at SummerSlam 1992 saying Davey just sort of goes, I'm gassed, I'm done.
I'm confused, I'm fixed.
Don't know what's going on.
Can you help me?
He's like, I had to do all the moves, take him through it. Yeah. And I did watch that and I did think, Davey's got form. Yeah. I'm doing that. I doubted it before, but Davey does have form. So Davey gets a second win, but Breaks just stuffs him. There is no quarter from Breaks. He doesn't sort of let him really even have a comeback. At one point, Breaks is just strangling him. He's got his hand around his throat, and you don't see that. I was really like, oh, that's rare. I see a move that actually go a bit uncomfortable. Don't like it.
And it's like, I presume Breaks has got some kind of hair colorant in there, but because he's got little monkey hair, and it's just kind of like pasted on, and he just looks like a really rotten shitbag. I hate him. I hate him so much, man.
He's got vibes of aggressive landlord who you don't pay, and he just starts kicking the bottom of your bedroom door. You know, he's all of that. It's oh Christ. Davey suddenly then grabs him and he pins him right at the end, and Kent Walton just goes, a beautiful con there by the kid. Just excited. Kent Walton.
And if the right hand looks like trouble, or is he feigning it to pull on Breaks and give him trouble? Yes, he's feigning it. He's feigning it. He was killing Breaks. Oh, a beautiful con there by the kid.
Suddenly, invested in it. And what's really funny about this is because Davey gets the pin right at the end, people almost treat it like there's been a victory for Davey.
Yeah.
They know he's not won the title, but they're so pleased that he managed to get one over Jim Breaks that they're just absolutely incandescent with joy. Yeah. Alan Dennison, Davey's trainer, then comes in and starts battering Jim Breaks with a load of flowers, presumably to set up an angle between them. Neil Edwards, 8931 on YouTube, he added, young David should have gone all out and attacked Breaks' nose instead of taking punishment. Stupid!
So many years later, people got, he should have done this. He was completely green. What's wrong with him?
Stupid
boy.
Breaks would retire in the late 80s, pretty much after, wrestling lost TV. And he went into the pub trade. That was something that a lot of the British wrestlers did. Tony Sinclair, who was a Cornish wrestler, son of another brilliant pro, who owned a pub, and he was brought up in the family pub. He said, I think the breweries were happy that so many wrestlers wanted to run pubs, as they could all look after themselves, but were also entertainers with their wrestling stories.
I can see that.
I should imagine that Jim Breaks didn't do so many of the stories, but I imagine he could look after himself.
Yes.
And then he retired to Spain. And he is still alive, but that, Pete, I'm afraid, is really where the good news ends when it comes to Jim Breaks. Back in 2017, he had an argument in his apartment in Gran Canaria with a woman named Donna Cowley. The papers reported sort of different things, that she was his living carer, that she was a former girlfriend, that she was a partner who had moved back in because she was a little bit down on her luck. But whatever the relationship, the events that happened were that Breaks ended up fatally punching her on a number of occasions. He smashed a cup over her head. She contacted the ambulance, but they took her, and I think she died the following day as a result of the injuries that had been inflicted upon her. Jim Breaks was arrested. He was facing a 15-year jail sentence ahead of the trial, but the trial was abandoned when it was disclosed that Breaks, who was then 83, was suffering from senile dementia. A psychiatrist report said that he would not be able to understand the object and scope of his trial due to his irreversible illness. And the last report that I can see on Jim Breaks said that he was taken to an unidentified psychiatric institution where he will remain for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
A very sad end to the story of Jim Breaks. I mean, these guys, Pete, they never got their flowers. They never got their flowers. And now look at us, 4 generations on, and many of them no longer with us. Jim Breaks suffering from dementia, obviously terrible circumstances. And it's a shame that these guys didn't get to hear a generation really celebrate, the work that they did. YouTube is to be commended for all of its hard work. Oh, gang, look, there are still some T-shirts available.
Yes.
Not in medium. Medium is a very popular size.
Yeah. Astonishingly, for a wrestling crowd.
You would not think, would you? You wouldn't think.
Oh, Lordy.
But let me tell you, I've got an awful lot of XLs if anyone's ready to put on some weight. Like Davey Boy. Yeah, like young David. Don't do that. You shorten your life.
Ladies and gentlemen, the champion, Jimmy Breaks.
Still the champion, Dennison! You should be in the stinking ring! You should know this one! Dennison's bowling last time for me, and he's bowling it this time! If Dennison's so good, why don't he get in the ring without him?
Maybe you at home could hear that. I couldn't.
And ladies and gentlemen, young